and I'm here at Placazo at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center talking to Tony Garcia, who's a writer for Interview with the Mexican, which is having their San Antonio debut tomorrow.
And I am Tony Garcia, and I'm sitting here with Sofia Otero. And we're going to do an interview here for you today, and I'm really excited about it. The show has been traveling a little bit, and this is our first time really to be able to get our feet wet. We love San Antonio. We love being here.
I was wondering if you could just, break down what exactly is the format of the play and what inspired you to write something like this.
Okay, let me start with the second question first. So there used to be a column that used to run in San Antonio. It was called Ask a Mexican, and it was written by Gustavo Arellano. And one day Gustavo was in town, and we were having tacos at this bar called the Mexico City. And after about the 15th taco, I said, "Hey, we should do a play about your column." And Gustavo said, "Why don't we do that?" And so then we started to do the process of developing the piece. Actually, I said, "I thought you were going to do a play on you." And he said, "I'm not going to do it. Why don't you do it?" And then we did it. And then we started doing it. And Gustavo's from Los Angeles. He writes for Los Angeles Times now. And over the period of time, he stopped doing Ask a Mexican. And so we changed the title of the play to Interview with the Mexican. So what we do in the play is we take the questions. So people would write him questions about he was the Mexican, and they would say, "Why do Mexicans do this and why do Mexicans do that?" I'm not like you've ever asked that question, right? Why do Mexicans do these things? And then he would answer, and sometimes it would be funny, but a lot of times it would be really, really smart. And so we started with that format of asking questions and then taking Gustavo's responses and then expanding those responses. And then we added music because Gustavo likes music and I do too. And then we added food, even though the audience won't get to eat, but we talk about food a lot.
And you mentioned there's food and music, so is it, I had also read that it was a one-man show, or is it an ensemble cast?
It's an ensemble cast. There is a character, he's called the Mexican, because Gustavo calls himself, his character is the Mexican. So what we did is we expanded that. And the Mexican is based on a lot of stereotypes, a lot of times negative stereotypes. So we went back to the beginning. One of the places we thought was the beginning of that was in movies. They used to have this character called the Greaser character, and he was Mexican, and they were the bandits, and they were doing all this terrible thing. And one of the guys who's the most famous was a character called Gold Hat. See the hat? And it was played by a guy named Alfonso Bedoya. And Alfonso Bedoya is famous because he had a line in the movie, a very famous movie called The Treasure of Sierra Madre. And it was called, his line was, "Badges? I don't have to show you no stinking badges." That sounds a bit familiar to you? Someplace in your world that you may have heard of it? So it was a very famous line. So we started it with that kind of idea. And from that, then, we started to flush out other stuff. So there are songs, there are stories that Gustavo talks about that have music connected with it. And he's written a couple of books, and one of them is called Taco USA, which is about food a lot. And so he does talk about food and why our food is better than almost every food in the whole world. You like that one, yeah? Yeah. So there's the food element in it, and it is funny and it's pretty obnoxious, but it's really smart too. And none of these things have anything to do with me. He's the smart guy. He's the smart aleck guy too. So I don't know what I'm doing. I get to do the interviews. That's my job.
I mean, you seem very smart right now.
Really?
Yes, I would say so.
That's because I keep mentioning things you haven't heard of yet. Watch. Give us like a couple minutes and you'll be smarter than me. It won't take long.
And so, I was also wondering that this is a traveling show, right? You started in Denver, and now you're in San Antonio.
Yeah, we actually were planning on going cross country, and then that thing happened that didn't let anybody out of their houses, and everybody got sick, and I don't know if you ever heard of it, right? But it stopped everything. We were scheduled to start in LA and go to New York. We had already gone to Albuquerque and to San Jose, and it's a small cast, which is really what you need for travel, for touring a show, and it's pretty self-contained. So what we did instead is we do have a nice little film version. So anybody who watches this and can't get enough of it, you can get a hold of us and we'll be glad to send you the link. And that was screened in New York City at a festival, and it was screened in LA too at a festival as well. So San Antonio is actually the first place we've been able to travel to since the pandemic hit.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, and we had this great time because 2 weeks ago, Carmen from Mexico was in town. This is a show done by the Guadalupe. They were in Denver and they were doing the play there, and then we got to come over here. So we're like buds. We're exchanging.
I heard that there was an exchange between.
That's because I've known Jorge since he was born. I knew him since Jorge Piña from the Guadalupe. Yeah, he was like 4 months old when I used to come and babysit for him.
Oh, are you from San Antonio?
No, I'm making all this stuff up. No, I'm not. I'm from Denver. But I've known Jorge for about 40 years.
Okay.
Okay. I gotta quit messing up.
It's almost a lifetime.
Almost a lifetime. A lifetime for some people.
And I guess since we're talking about traveling and like the different like communities that stay in contact with each other, like obviously there is no like pan like Mexican, right, or like stereotype. And I was wondering if you've noticed differences in different like Chicano communities that y'all have been traveling.
Yeah, one thing is you guys don't use the term Chicano here as much as we use it in Denver, which is neither here is not a good thing or a bad thing. I'll give you a good contrast. So yeah, there's sometimes things he says that are not necessarily. So he uses the word wab. Do you guys ever use that word? Right, which is a derogatory term for people who come across the border, right? It stands for walks across the border. I never heard that term. He uses it because that's in Orange County where he's from. That's where they use the term. We left it in the play so we could educate people. But there was actually a really interesting piece. We were in Albuquerque, and New Mexico thinks it's the chili capital of the world, right? They think their chile is better. And my family comes from New Mexico at some point, so we think that too. But in southern Colorado, we have a town called Pueblo, who has some pretty good chili too. So Gustavo is there, and he says, well, I think the Pueblo chili is about as good as the New Mexico one, and people almost beat him up on the stage. So you have these things that come from one neighborhood, one community to another. What I find is that there's a lot more similarities, or we connect with it in a different way, and we say the same thing except a little bit different, and I think that's the best. Gentrification, you guys are going through a lot of gentrification during this time period. We have a song in the play that, interesting enough, Gustavo wrote a response to a letter about gentrification, and it came from Denver, because his column used to go in San Antonio and San Jose, Los Angeles. Denver was one of the places. So he used to take letters from all those places. And so there was a letter that came in about gentrification in the north side of Denver, which is really, really bad. I just happen to have written a song called White People Walking Their Dogs, which is really what has happened to a lot of our communities. That's what happened to the north side. It's like you don't see the cholos out driving in their cars anymore. You see white yuppies walking their dogs. And so the two things overlap together, and we were able to so that's how a lot of, and there's times when Gustavo and I are talking and he'll say, yeah, and then you wrote that. It's like, Gustavo, that's a quote from you. So there's a lot of blending of those things. So I am the writer, but I'm the director, but there was so much of a collaborative process. Lorenzo Gonzales, who you're going to talk to next, is the Mexican. He actually plays the Mexican in the play. He wrote a large section in there about a piece called Jaguar Jeopardy, which means if you get it wrong, then you get eaten by a jaguar. It's a real. A lot of people are lining up to play that game. Not for long.
I imagine there's a high turnover rate.
There's a real high turnover rate. It's kind of a win or really lose thing. So that's in the play too. So there's all these really fun kind of things in there, and but it is really about us exploring our own culture, but it's also him reaching out to non-Latinos, right? To say, if you don't understand about us, ask us, because. So one of the examples about asking the question is, we ask the question, Because people don't want to ask because they don't want to sound stupid, right? That's probably, and actually, what is stupider? Is it stupider to eat the tamal with the husk, or is it better to ask, how do I eat this thing, right? We go ask, yes. So we say ask so you don't look like a pendejo. And so that's kind of the lesson of the whole piece. Don't be afraid to ask a question, even though if it makes people feel uncomfortable, you come away with more knowledge and information, and knowledge and information is good.
And so for anyone like who comes to see your play, like the one thing you'd want them to take away is to ask questions, is what you'd say?
That is correct. Ask us, don't be afraid to ask us questions, because we're not going to beat you up just for asking us a question. And we're not exotic. We're normal as anybody else, you know, but we're not going to change what we are. And there's really good stuff about it, but you're not going to find out until you ask, right?
No, definitely, I would say so.
Yeah, and it's hard to ask because so I like to ask dumb questions. I like to ask stupid questions. I mean, I ask whatever's coming up. And because I really, there's a lot of, I don't know anything about visual arts. I really struggle with that. So I'm always asking, we're surrounded by great visual arts here. And I'm always asking those, why'd you do that? How come that color is this? And then you know what? They explain it to me. And then after that, I'll walk up to somebody and then I'll tell them that. And then they think I'm smart. It's really a tricky thing. I don't know where that came from.
Speaking of asking questions, one of my questions was actually about how, the format of the play, because you said it's like you said how it's based off this column. So is there audience participation, or is it? Yes, the audience will be asked, and we will give away prizes that for audience getting, you know, like a trip to Cancun. Oh no, Ted Cruz already took that. Lorenzo was going to tell that joke. I just thought I'd steal it from him before that. So yeah, we'll give prizes if you get the questions right, and it's like it ends up being kind of like a quiz show, and it becomes, I mean, think of Sábado Gigante and all this, the most like, what is it, America's Got Talent, all those things kind of wrapped into something that's just not as good as any of those things. Better. and that's what we're doing. So it's a kind of it's a game show, it's a variety show, it's a talent show, and mostly it's about an opportunity to have some fun with our audiences, you know, with our people, and express our pride in our people, and the things that are really, you know, spoiler alert, we do have some funny things about the Virgen de Guadalupe, so if anybody's, bring your holy water with you, we'll probably need it. I actually had a Jesus pen that I keep at my desk. And today it fell and his head broke off, and I thought it was a bad sign. Oh my God! I will bring holy water tomorrow. You're young though, so you can outlive that. That's pretty good. I'm glad we share that. Yeah. I think thank you for that's a losing my Jesus pen head. I think that's. You get decapitated. Seems like a bad sign. But. Yeah, okay. If we go down this road, we'll both be in trouble. You know that, right? I was just thinking about Good Friday and stuff like that. But anyway, it's not horrible, but it's you know, we do talk about the Virgen de Guadalupe. There's a lot of What's great about Gustavo is that sometimes he just sounds like he's so obnoxious, right? And then there's times when he just sounds like he should have this PhD, but Gustavo is really, really smart, and you go, wow. So you get to laugh, and then you get your brain massaged, and you walk away and you go, I didn't know that. And I'll think about that for a little bit. And how's the reception been after your play? Have audience members come up to you and have they said anything? Yeah, they said we were, they liked it. Good. No, rave reviews. Yeah, it's they come and tell us other things. So it's like when you do that kind of stuff, people will go, oh yeah, did you think about this, and did you know about this, and did you know about that connection? And so they want to know smarter. Everybody wants to get that piece. But like I said, we've done it in Albuquerque, we did it in San Jose, we did it in parts of Southern Colorado. For those who don't know, Southern Colorado is really, really Chicano area. It's really in Denver and Southern Colorado, and we're a big population in the state, But so we've done it in those areas, and when we have, and the response we got from New York was they laughed. They thought it was funny too. And even though we do, and we make fun of Puerto Ricans too, but we really make fun of Mexicans. So it's like there's nobody who's safe. But now that we got the Jesus pen head now in our wheelhouse, don't be surprised what you see on stage tomorrow. But the response has been very, very, very positive. The tour is sponsored by the New England Fund for the Arts, which is a national funding organization, and we were in a pool of 600 companies that were pitting for this grant, and they gave away 10, and so we were one of those. So that should tell you kind of the level of what people's respect for this piece has been, and it's off the wall. It'll be fun. It's funny. That's the bit most thing. I think it's funny, but it's not necessary. And it's like bad funny and good funny at the same time, I think.
And I've noticed that, well, not noticed, but a lot of like Chicano theater, like historically is rooted in activism. Would you say this is a continuation of that same tradition?
Yeah, one of the. And you know what? If I talk too long, you can always interrupt me.
No, you're
because
doing
you can
great.
just go, and I understand that. Because Lorenzo, when he gets on, you ain't gonna get any words in. So that's why I have to build up this stuff here. So obviously you're seeing me with the United Farm Workers hat, right? Not because I ever worked in the fields, but because yes, we come out of those traditions of political activism. I think one of the biggest aspects that came out of the Chicano theater movement and what arts does, Chicano arts, we're in the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center here, is that it gives us another forum for critical analysis. The arts allow us to approach social issues in a critical way, to deconstruct them, to start to unpack all the things that are in there, but it does it in a much more, it does it in an intellectual way, but it also does it in a real tactile way, really on that you can touch and you can go and say, hey, I understand that now. That it's like a painting a picture, and then looking in there and going, oh, I understand why they use red, and I understand why they use, one of the things I like, speaking of food, salsa is made up of tomatoes, green chili, and white cebolla. It is, where do you find those three colors? On the Mexican flag. And you go, why did they do that? What came first? Did the salsa come first? Or did the Mexican flag come first? Does the Mexican flag really reflecting all the colors in salsa? I don't know. Lorenzo knows. He went to more school than I did, so he might know. But I'm just saying those are the things that we're able to talk about in terms of the arts, and we can do it musically. I tell you, the song's title is "White People Walking Their Dogs," and you all kind of laugh because you all have the image. I have people who say every time I drive and I see that happening, it tells me this is a story. This is gentrification. I'm watching it happen. You've given me that picture, and that's what we're able to do. So I think it's not a call to action necessarily. It's a call to analysis. That doesn't sound as exciting as call to action, does it?
No, and call analysis sounds. I think that's like. I think it's a really important point in that sometimes with like the arts, it like opens up a space, and like we do a lot of murals, and so in a similar vein, I think it opens up a lot of space to start having discussions, and that to like for people to ask questions. Like why is it like this? Why is it like that? And I think. In terms of like murals and also theater, there's that like performance like aspect to it, and like public and like engagement, and like I think getting people to start asking questions and like start thinking about why the way things are, and like sometimes that's like through comedy, like satire.
I always like pieces looking at somebody and going, okay, what do I see in that picture? What's not there? Do you ever watch a movie and you go, there's only white people in this movie. There's only white people in this restaurant.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is, why is that? And you got to go, who made it? Who are they making it for? Why did I not exist there? And there are places where there's only white people. They usually have a little bit more money, but there's that. But it allows you to ask not only questions of what's in this picture, but also what's not in that picture. Kind of Sesame Street thing.
Why are all these white people walking their dogs?
Very good, very good.
My last question is, Do they eat chili in the play? Or do they eat chili in the play? Salsa? If they do, is it from New Mexico? Is it from Colorado?
I think tomorrow night it'll be from San Antonio.
Oh, so you change based on where you are?
No, because I hadn't thought of putting any chili in it until you mentioned this, but I don't want to let you down, so I'm going to have chili. I'm going to have... Lorenzo's already thinking about how can I get the chili into the place. So we'll figure it out. For you, we will have chile from San Antonio. Any place in particular you want us to get it? Now, we're talking about the whole roasted, but you were thinking of...
Cold.
You want
I see.
cold one? Like from the fridge?
like unroasted peppers.
Unroasted peppers. Okay, where do you suggest we go to get that?
See, I would like HEB, like...
HEB? We'll go to HEB. We'll buy it off the shelves, and Lorenzo will just chew into it. We'll figure out a way of putting it into there, okay?
I'll look for my name in the playbill, in the credits.
Oh, and then she's going to want a percentage of the royalties and all that stuff like that, right?
I'll take 50%.
50. So 50% of nothing is, yeah. That's right. Okay.
Hi, my name is Lorenzo Gonzales, and I am associate artist with Su Teatro from Denver, and I'm here happy and eager to perform Interview with the Mexican. I play the character of Gold Hat, also known as the Mexican.
First things first, thanks for sitting down and talking to us. We really appreciate it. And so you're the main character, right?
That's correct. I get to play the Mexican. But actually, it's not the Mexican, but the name of the character is Gold Hat. And so it is, like Tony explained earlier in the interview, this character that basically is the embodiment of all the stereotypes and when they were originated. And this particular character from Treasures of the Sierra Madre, which is iconic, you know, and in creating a certain type of stereotype. So yeah, from that character we go on. But the fun part about it is that it's not one only. I mean, for me, the way I see it, he evolves and he changes, and he sometimes is this different kind of stereotype, this different kind of stereotype. The way it works is really, it is one part of Gustavo Arellano, who is that used to write the column Ask a Mexican. And Gustavo explained it really nicely. He said that sometimes he would get questions from people that were truly honest. That he could tell there were honest questions about the culture. And in those instances, he would answer the question really honestly, and he would do the research and offer a well-researched answer. But sometimes he would get answers that were, he would get, not answers, but he would get questions that were really, really, you could tell that they were sarcastic and obnoxious and sometimes quite racist. And so he would answer in turn. He would answer in kind.
I'd actually seen that when I was, his book is on Google Books. So I could see the preview, because I read the first, maybe half chapter.
Yeah.
And I could see how there was a big difference in, I think, some of the questions where you could tell who was actually sincere and then who was just trolling.
Yeah.
He would troll them back.
Yeah. And there were, and so, but the thing is that he would take them and he would answer. So in the show we split the character of Gustavo, and there's another character that's played by Felicia Gallegos, who's la profesora, and so she offers the well-researched answers and all that, and Gold Hat tends to be the one that is the edgy answerer.
More off the cuff.
Yeah, or off the cuff. Yeah, more sarcastic. That holds all those things. I mean, it's funny because we do, you do want to explore what is this that's the fine line that we run, is what's stereotypical and what's actually typical. You know, in terms of like, wait, that's not stereotypical, that's actually typical. We do that. It's not something that is, why are you talking about that as a stereotype? But because it's typical. So that kind of question, or that kind of ambiguity is something that I think the show offers, you know.
So would you say that I'm sorry, I forgot, it was La Profesora is the one
Right.
who offers the more, I guess, typical answers, you
Yeah.
could say? Or like typical,
Well, she offers the more learned, you know, heady answers, and she's the one that you know ventures into answers of, you know, she quotes people, she presents studies and things like that. So yeah.
and while, so the gold hat character?
Yeah, and the gold hat character, the
is
Mexican.
more of the foil.
Yeah.
And he's like the
Correct.
stereotype
Sure.
versus like she's more like the
Right.
typical.
You might say so. I couldn't possibly comment. Because I'm like the premise of it, the premise of the show is like Tony said, is like ask, right? And it's about living in the question, and living in the question of, it's not about getting the answers, it's about actually continuing the question. It's continuing the question of what it means to be, and what it means then to become. And are we finished? And is a culture evolving? So that question continues. So it's not just about answering questions, you know, there are some questions that have literal answers, you know. When was this song written? Oh, it was written in 1882. Cielito Lindo was written in 1882. And it was written by a man from, that was originally from Xochimilco, right? And everybody sings this song. Quirino Mendoza Cortés, right, wrote the song. So you get those literal answers for certain questions, but there are other questions that are questions that endure, you know, particular about what is family, for example. You know, there are questions about family. How do we hold ourselves as a family? And that question is like, well, there's many answers, right? And there's also, what does it mean for us to liberate ourselves from our internal racism? You know, that question is like, hold that question, because there's no answer to it, because there's freedoms that are yet undiscovered and yet unknown to us if we continue with the question.
And so would you say is the most important question presented in the play that you want an audience member to take with them or ask themselves?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. What's the
Or if you
biggest?
could pick two.
What's the biggest question we have in the show?
Or two biggest questions? Three.
Well, the biggest question that we have in the show, I would say, would be just ultimately the question that we all ask ourselves: what does it ultimately mean to be human? What does it ultimately mean to be human? You know, to be a person that forgives, to be a person, what are the biggest qualities that we have as human beings? And that kernel of compassion that we are all, you know, we all have the possibility of being really mean and obnoxious and being terrible, but we also have in us that kernel of being great and wonderful and helpful to each other. So ultimately the question is, what is, it's not so much about like, what does it mean to be Mexican? Because the answer is Mexicans are humans and we belong. And so ultimately is that, where do we touch with every human being? What does it mean to be human, I think is the main question.
And were you involved in workshopping your character?
Yes, actually, you know, there was a period when we started writing, and so from the very beginning, I was involved in the project, and there were parts that we would take to Puebla and we would take around in Colorado and try out, and then we would go back and rewrite and write other parts, and then there were parts, and then if you read the book of Gustavo, like you were mentioning, there's tons of other questions. There's so many other questions that were asked of him that he answered. And so sometimes it was like, well, really, a lot of it was figuring out which ones we were going to use and which ones, and they're all great. There's great material in there, but I guess Gustavo is watching this. He might turn it into a TV show.
HBO limited series.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I guess, what was your criteria, your guiding principle when narrowing down, like what questions to draw from?
Well, those that resonated for us, those that we related, those that made us laugh. You know, and that's another thing I know. I that in working with this show, and particularly in our times where humor is being questioned, but understanding that humor is also a weapon. You know, a weapon against intolerance. You know, a weapon. It's not necessarily just. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You know, it can be used to put down people, but it also can be used to erode and you know, systems. You know, and so that was also a big guiding tool for us, or was that? Well, that really got a laugh from the audience. That really, the audience really got that one. So that was part. And then there were like times where we had things that, well, that was not really working. We already did it like 5 times, so we're gonna have to cut that out. You know, so the humor in it is very important. And something happens, you know, when you have all, I don't know, 300, 500 people, 1,500 people, 1,200 people that all laugh at the same time. You know, that everybody agrees that, isn't it silly how we human beings are like this? And at that point, there is the possibility of letting go of something that is harmful or that is not the most positive of things. So yeah, humor was the big guide for us. That made us laugh. That didn't make us laugh.
And so you mentioned that you've taken nap jokes and put jokes in. So do you guys edit the play as you tour? Is that what you're doing?
Oh yeah, we had as we go on, and then we get I get the note from Tony. You know that part that you did that you added? Cut it. Don't do it again. Nobody laughed at that.
Naturally.
No, but that was it. I mean, that's the great part about collaborating with Tony, because Tony gives me that freedom when we were developing the show, when we were creating the show, we would try out material and I would try out things, and that's the part about I love working with him, because I really trust him in him telling me, you know, that doesn't work, and okay, that didn't work. And that's a great part of the collaboration we've had, is that, you know.
And Tony mentioned that you've written a song for the show?
Well, Tony wrote a song for the show, White People Walking Their Dogs, and then there's a section where we go into some commercials. And so I wouldn't say that I wrote a song. I wrote some jingles.
I look forward to hearing.
Yeah. You know, so there's some jingles, commercial jingles in the show.
What for you has been the most meaningful aspect of this entire
Well, I know that you asked Tony about, how it's received by different communities. To me, that's been the greatest gift. Is like taking it to different, communities. Like it is a great honor and a great joy. We've been looking forward to being here in San Antonio. We're really, really happy that we're here and doing it live for you all. That's the greatest gift. I mean, and like, because you see that, oh wait, there's this whole the whole southwest of the United States. It's all, it's this unacknowledged, unspoken for, and these stories that are not being told. And it's a wide region. It's a big region. So that part is always the best. It's always the best discovering and getting to talk to people like you, and meeting Abraham. And yeah, that is the best part.
So you'd say just connecting with people.
Yeah, definitely. And like I say, there's this. When do you get, like, if you say, well, when do you have like 600 people, or even 40 or 30 people, or whatever, 300 people that agree on something at one moment? And that's what happens when we have that moment, like I was telling you, of laughter. It's like you have all these people at this one moment, all agreeing that this is what it means to be human, be fallible, and it's funny.
And would you say, I guess, like that connection with an audience, is that what got you into acting? Or how long have you been acting?
Wow. Tony's laughing. He's like, well, now I feel that I'm as old as the hills. But I've been doing it for about 30 years. There's this, it's funny because the older I get, the more mysterious theater becomes, and understanding it. Like when I was younger, it was like, oh yeah, I know what theater is, and this is what it's all about. And now as I get older, it's just like, I'm finding that that's the best thing for me, is to open up and to the idea that actually I don't know what it is. I don't know what this connection is between being a performer and the audience, but something happens, and I think it's best not to try to pinpoint it and define it. It's best to leave it open.
I guess, what has been your favorite part of this whole traveling experience, going from community to community with everybody?
Well, my favorite part is actually working with the ensemble, because we have a great ensemble. Like I mentioned, Felicia Gallegos is just amazing to work with, and just how the rapport keeps on growing, and with Paola, and I call him El Miguel, but that's a great part, and I think the collaborative aspect of all the work that we've been doing is my joy. I mean, it's kind of like we're rehearsing all day, and we do the show, and then we hang out together again all day. Just like, so, and we eat, and so that bond with a company, that bond is great. So that's been my favorite part.
Well, we look forward to seeing, I guess, the result of all your collaboration, your hard work.
Oh, well, Well, thank you so much. We appreciate all your support. We are very, very thankful and lots of gratitude and love to the Guadalupe Cultural Center for bringing us. It's just such a joy to be here, and it's also really wonderful to, the love that Jorge and everybody here has offered us. It's just always very moving. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for sitting down with us. Thanks for watching. This has been Sophie Otero with El Placazo, sitting down with Lorenzo Gonzales and Tony Garcia at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center.